Welcome back to QAV, episode 814. What a crazy couple of days it has been. I'm up here in Bundy visiting my mum for school holidays, and I was doing some work on the Monday morning blog post yesterday about 9 a.m. and then Hunter called me. So the market hadn't opened. And I'd done the blog post and I'd looked at where we were as of that moment. I think the light portfolio was still up about 8% for the financial year. Hunter called me, I spoke to him for an hour, and then I opened up and looked at the portfolio again, and it was down to 0 for the financial year. But then it was back up this morning, so it's kind of crazy. There was about 3 or 4 stocks that I was going to have to sell at 9 a.m. this morning. By 11 a.m. I didn't have to sell any of them, except maybe ANZ, which is flirting with its 3-point trend line sell. It's above it, it's below it, it's above it, it's below it. So,
yes, I own ANZ and I've been looking at it too. I got the alert last night and I think it was like a cent below it this morning. Just thought, no, I'm just going to leave it alone and see what happens today.
I think last time I checked, which was about half an hour ago, it was about 10 cents below it, but at $27, so it's 10 cents is neither here nor there, really. It goes up and
Trump
down
change.
and that fairly quickly. Yeah.
Trump change.
Oh, my God. So I guess this will be an episode largely full of what's going on in the US and how it affects us. But again, and I've said this many times over the years, and I'll say it again, it's at times like this when we're lucky to have a system that I'm reading all of the investing subreddits here and in the US, and people are like, just hold, buy more, do this, do that. And there's like, if you were going to places like that for investing strategy or tactics, you would not know which way to move. And fortunately, I just look at my spreadsheet and it tells me what to do, and I do it, and don't have to think about it, don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been going through the subreddits like you do, but reading all the posts that I go through and the newsletters, etc. And there's some crazy stuff being said by some pretty smart people. Things like, we're going to wait for the bottom. And then later on in the article, it's like, you can't pick the bottom. And here are some signs here are some signs of the market bottom, but they don't always work. It's like, you just casting around. It's, you should have worked out when you were going to be a buyer and when you were going to be a seller years ago, and have that as your framework. And then when this happens, you just lean into it.
And, I say this all the time too. It's the same is true for having a framework for life.
Yeah, very much
philosophy
so.
For life.
Yeah. Well, you remember when we started collaborating, it was around Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the framework for life. You've got to work out what's important to you. You've got to get the hierarchy in place, and then you've got to work out what you need for self-actualization. I've
been talking to my boys. Taylor just broke up with his girlfriend in LA.
I thought they were living together.
No, he got an apartment that she had to sign the lease for because he doesn't have a history over there to get a lease, and then they broke up a few days later.
Oh.
Pretty much, yeah. But, and I've been talking to Hunter too, and, the question that always comes up with these guys when they're breaking up with girlfriends are all women crazy? And I go, yes, but all people are crazy.
Yeah.
All people are crazy. All people have insecurities. All people have self-esteem issues. Unless they have developed a framework that enables them to deal with those things in a healthy manner. And most people, in my experience, haven't or don't, because usually they don't think about that until the shit hits the fan. And at which point it's often like, it's not too late, but because, unless you're on your deathbed, you have decades of life to put that to good use. I was lucky enough to meet Bob when I was 19, 20, who helped me with that and got me through my 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s so far. But, it's like an investment framework's the same thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
You get it, and then it's there in the bad times.
Correct.
To get you through it, right? It's already in place. You already know what to do. You don't have to go looking for one.
Mm-hmm.
When the market's crashing, it's the wrong time to be looking for an investing framework,
Yeah, and you said, I remember listening to your podcast many years ago, and you used to say things like, what would Napoleon do? So you kind of like had a framework to refer back to when something was going crazy. It's a bit like an investing framework, you know. What does QAV do in this situation? Yeah.
What does TK do?
Mm.
And people were asking that over the weekend on Facebook before you chimed in, but I was pretty confident that you would just be following the rules, right?
Exactly. That's what the rules are for. You don't,
That's why they're there.
you don't throw them out at the first sign of trouble.
Yeah.
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 Well, right. We're facing a downturn in the market. What's the first thing we should do? Oh, throw the rules out.
The rules out. Yeah.
Burn the house down. Knock over the framework. Yeah.
Well, look, to be fair, you have fudged and modified rules from time to time.
That's why I call it a framework.
Framework, yes.
It's a guide.
Yeah, they can be modified. But as I was explaining to a new member that I did a Zoom call with last week, you don't modify. You do modify things, but you don't do them easily.
Correct.
You know.
Yeah. It should slowly change. I think that's a good motto.
Yeah.
And you let experience guide you. So undoubtedly there'll be something coming out of this downturn in the market, which may be an upturn next week, which we might say, okay, let's look at how we went through that, and is there a better way of doing it?
And just in terms of people handling the crash in general, like it's been gratifying again, as it was the last time we went through one of these, to see people in the QAV Facebook groups saying, yeah, I'm just following the rules and doing what it tells me to do. And, you know it'll be okay. And we'll end up with a lot of buying opportunities as the market starts to turn around again. We'll be there like we were in COVID to get in at the right time. And maybe there might be a boom year that comes out of this at some point if Trump comes to his senses, which I don't like the chances of that, but something will happen. The market will turn around at some point. It always does.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've written a whole heap of notes on the US market at the moment, if you want me to start going through those. But
let's get into it.
Yeah, I think
that's why people are here, I'm sure.
Yeah, I agree. It's certainly top of mind, and it's a shame it's top of mind. I mean, I'm tempted to say it's noise, but it's not. There are real world implications for tariffs. There are real world implications for companies and everything that goes with it, with a downturn in the market, with the potential recession that it might bring on. So, yeah, I'm not. I sound like I'm making light of this, but this could be a real problem. But we do have a framework to get through real problems. So that's the good side of things. But it's like if you go back to first principles, and I've argued this with people, probably once or twice with David Markham, that who was a protectionist when it comes to industries because he wanted to see more jobs kept on shore and people manufacturing cars, etc. in the US. So I get that, but it's even if you think that's a good thing, and I don't, I'm a free marketer when it comes to these things. Even if you accept that that's your position, do you just drop a bomb on Freedom Day, or do you go and negotiate with your partners and put something in place to make it happen that's a little less catastrophic? So that's the first point. Even if you do believe in building up industries again in your own country, there's a way to do it with your trading partners.
Which is the way it is always done, which is through diplomacy and leaders of countries and their chief administrators sitting down and going, well, we're not happy with this and we're not happy with that, so let's figure out a compromise and come up with a way to move forward. So that's how grown-ups do it.
Yeah, but I don't believe, well, first of all, I don't think putting tariffs on cars, for example, is going to create more car employment in the US, because car factories are probably going to be run by robots. So it's not going to help that situation at all, I don't think. And all it means is that you're going to have investment in the auto industry for as long as the tariffs last. And if you think about the economics of that, right? You're GM, you're the CEO of GM, tariffs have come in, you've got the opportunity to build plants in the US and onshore all your automobile factories. That's probably going to be a 4 or 5 year plan involving multi-billions of dollars. And the only crux that justifies that is tariffs, and the only crux holding that up is the current president. So you may not be as committed to bringing those plants onshore, or your board might not be as you might seem to the president.
But I've read a number of articles in the last couple of years, well before this whole tariff thing, well before the current Trump administration, of the CEOs of American automobile manufacturers talking about the idea of decoupling from China and saying, well, that's all well and good, but we don't make all of the parts for our cars. All of the parts, we might assemble them, but all of the parts for our cars are made in other countries, and a lot of them are made in China. We don't have the manufacturing capability in this country to make all of the hundreds and hundreds of parts that go into making a car. You would need to build hundreds of factories to build all of the specialized parts before we could do, and then you need the rare earth materials for the computer chips, and you need all sorts of stuff that we don't have. Like logistically, it is not a click of your fingers, put a tariff. Okay, well, we're just going to do it here. Like it's insanity to think that after offshoring manufacturing for 50 years, there's going to be a quick solution to onshoring this stuff, if ever.
No, that's right. And the market's evolved that way because that is the best way to produce automobiles. Complex supply chains is to find a specialist who can do it for you cheaper than you can do it yourself. So that's economics 101. So it's not going to work. And the other problem with those kinds of industries, and I saw it firsthand in Australia when I was running a company called My Direct, which was in the rag trade, and it was at the tail end of the tariffs being reduced and eventually eliminated in the clothing and textile industries in Australia. And we had suppliers who were going out of business because when the tariffs got taken away or got reduced, got lessened year by year in the footwear industry and in the textile industry, they couldn't compete because what happens is they're frozen in time. When the tariffs get put in, they can make their factory run efficiently and make a buck when the tariffs are there, right? The people who are outside or overseas who don't have that, they're still improving. They're still becoming more efficient because they have to the point where after, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years, they get better. They get better at producing their shoes or jumpers or whatever, such that they can still sell them into Australia cheaper than the company that's got the tariffs. Even with their tariffs on, they're still cheaper than the company that's producing them locally because they've been productive the whole way. The tariffs are a terrible barrier to productivity because they're put in place because the manufacturing isn't productive in the first place. So
isn't competitive.
Yeah.
With international manufacturers or suppliers or growers, whatever it is.
Correct. So the automobile suppliers and companies know this. They know that their investments only work as long as the current regime stays in place and they have the same level of tariffs. But eventually, it might take 10 years, people will be able to produce automobiles offshore, which they can sell into America with the tariffs, which are still cheaper and better than the locally made items there. And then they go out of business, all the tariffs get raised again. But then they have to, they soon work out their best business model is to lobby the government. It's not to produce better automobiles. And that's the kind of dance that gets played in the industries after that. And it's a terrible place to be, which is why tariffs were unraveled around the world.
Well, they weren't completely unraveled. I mean, there are still tariffs all around the world. Even with free trade agreements, there are still tariffs. There are carve-outs and those sorts of special deals.
Yeah, but they tend to be one-offs, right? And
yes.
I mean, look, I'm glossing over it. Like, you can say that the Europeans support their farmers too much, or whatever. So there are tariffs around the world. You're right, but it's very different to saying your country gets 34% on every good that's imported into my country. Yeah.
And I'm dumb when it comes to a lot of this stuff, and it's really hard for my brain to process these sorts of things. And so I've spent a lot of time over the last week in particular trying to get my brain around it. But when this, like, as we know, I'm sure you've seen the analysis on this when Trump held up his big board with the tariffs that the countries are charging the US, and everyone went, actually, that's not true. They don't charge us those tariffs. And it was a calculation that was based on the trade imbalance, had nothing to do with tariffs. So that's point A, is he has no idea what he's talking about. But then if you start talking about if the US is upset about trade imbalance, I mean, I've been trying to understand why you're upset, how you get upset about trade imbalances. And tariffs play a role in trade imbalances, I understand that, as do currency valuations and those sorts of things. But at the end of the day, as I understand it, getting back to I keep trying to reduce things down to a coffee shop analogy. Mm-hmm. It's like I come to your shop and I buy 5 coffees and a couple of croissants and some banana bread, because you make really good croissants and banana bread and really good coffee. And I have a jewelry shop, and you don't buy much of my jewelry because you don't like it, or it's too expensive or whatever. And then I get pissed off at you because you're not buying stuff from my shop, and I'm going to increase the prices on your coffees in order to stop my employees, let's say, from buying your coffees or your it makes no sense. No,
well, the analogy
is selling stuff that I want.
The analogy is I own the jewelry store, and I'm going to stop buying coffee from you because you don't buy jewelry from me. I'm going to make my own coffee and drink that. And it's sort of
right.
You'll work out your coffee shit,
but you don't have a coffee machine.
No, exactly. Well, I can't make croissants or banana bread. Yeah. So that's.
I mean, it just makes. No, although, have you read or heard of the paper that this is all based on? Stephen Moran's paper?
No. I mean, I've heard of it, but I don't know much about it.
So I started reading it, and then it was too boring, so I got GPT to analyze it for me. But so this guy, Stephen Moran, who's former senior strategist at Hudson Bay Capital and is the current chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors to Trump. He wrote a paper called A User's Guide to Restructuring the Global Trading System late last year. And it seems to be the plan that they're following. And as I understand it, the basic idea is we throw massive tariffs on all these countries. And in order to reduce the value of the dollar. So basically, we throw tariffs on these countries so Americans stop buying as much of these countries' products, which means these countries have less American dollars, which means they buy less currency-based backed assets, treasuries, bonds, etc., which means the dollar devalues, the US dollar devalues, which means US goods are cheaper for those countries to buy, unless they throw tariffs on them, like China has. But and then that's going to bolster American manufacturing and farming and whatever, because the US dollar will be devalued and their products will be cheaper. That seems to be the basics of Moran's strategy here that they seem to be following.
Let's just examine that logic, Cam, because I have heard the argument. I didn't know who it came from. We're going to devalue the dollar. Okay, tick, that's happening now. And then overseas people will be able to afford to buy more of our goods. So they buy more of our goods. What happens to the US dollar when people buy more of your goods?
It goes back up again.
Right.
Although, I mean, the other thing is people tend to buy, US treasuries, US assets because it's supposedly a safe place to put your money because it's such a stable genius of a country. With this stable genius running it, I don't think anyone in the world right now is looking at the US going, this is a stable place to invest our currency. I mean, you were talking, as a lot of my American friends do, about, well, Trump won't be in power forever. And I'm like,
yeah, he will.
Really? Yeah. You really think there's going to be another election? I mean, a real election. There may be a sham election, but as I've said, I don't know if I've said it on this show, but I've said it on my other shows many times, Trump and Musk cannot afford to be out of power now. This is essentially, it's like Caesar crossing the Rubicon. Once Caesar crossed the Rubicon, that was it. He knew that the game had to change because he would get prosecuted and exiled and destroyed. They were already trying to do that to him, which is why he crossed the Rubicon in the first place. Once you cross the Rubicon, there's no going back. There's no taking unless you're completely, I don't know, willing to roll the dice a second time. But he cannot afford to be out of power. They will destroy him and his family and his colleagues and his friends and Musk. If the Democrats ever get back in power, it's all over. It's lights out for all those guys.
Correct. And he's already come out and said as much. And last week on Air Force One, he said,
"Going to run for a third term."
Yeah, I'm thinking about running for a third.
There are ways.
And there are ways
to do it.
And then I've read articles which explore that, talking about Vance runs for president, gets the presidency, and then steps down, and Trump's the vice president, and he gets the job, or he's speaker of the.
That doesn't. Speaker he can be. He can't be vice president for that to work, but he could be speaker. Yeah.
So I agree with you.
Oh,
he's going to hang on to power.
If he can, like it's got to be a fight for holding on to power. And if not him, if he dies, it'll be Vance, or it'll be whoever else, Peter Thiel and Elon Musk want to be running the country. And anyway.
The upside is there might be something good for us out of all this, because the people who are now selling to the US may actually flood our market with cheap goods. So we might actually see cheap white goods, cheap TVs, cheap automobiles in Australia because they can't go to the US because of the tariffs. So that might work for us. What else can I say about this? The other thing about the tariffs in the US is there's probably going to be, it's like prohibition, right? They're now prohibiting items that people want to buy from being bought. It's a bit like in Australia now where you can buy black market cigarettes for $25 because the government's put a tariff or a tax on legitimate cigarettes. And it just, they've lost all the revenue from that because people are going around that. It's going to happen in the States as well. The border is still a little bit porous in the US. It's very large and goods will get in at from current suppliers at current rates and be sold on the black market. So that will also help to erode what Trump's trying to do with manufacturing in the US. So that's another reason why it may not work. This is reminding me of Brexit. It's like this is America exiting the world trade basically, the UK economy is still not back where it was prior to Brexit. Interestingly enough, I looked up what happened to the stock exchange, and the stock market has been doing okay since Brexit. So it's recovered, just like I think ours probably will as well. But the economy's staggered, lurched in the UK for a couple of years since Brexit. So that's the kind of pattern I'm looking at for the US, or the template for the US going forward. The last comment I've got is this could all be a grift. Thinking outside the box. Trump may well have had friends shorting the market, and then he'll start saying, "Oh, look at Japan, aren't they lovely? I'm going to take the tariffs away from them. We're both going to agree not to charge each other tariffs." And slowly he walks back from where he is now, and the market shoots up after he got out of his shorts and bought back into the market. So it could also be a grift.
You obviously don't follow my TikTok because I posted a TikTok a couple of weeks ago where Steve Sammartino said that this is a complete grift, and it's currently up around about 600,000 views, and lots of angry debate and comments going on in the comment section. But well, did you see what happened yesterday when it spiked? The market spiked briefly.
Yeah, because there was a rumor.
Yeah, and did you hear how that happened?
All I heard was there was a rumor that Trump was going to walk the tariffs back, and then they came out later on, and the White House came out and squashed it.
One guy on Twitter
called Sammartino?
A guy who... No, I wish. A guy who goes by the name of Walter Bloomberg. He's got about 1 million followers on Twitter, and he just reposts Bloomberg headlines. He posted a tweet that said that Hassett said that Trump was considering putting a 90-day suspension on the tariffs. The market shot up like 8 or 9 points. And then an hour later, it was like, oh, no, he said he's not going to do that. And the market crashed again. Now, if that guy who runs that Twitter account happened to buy shares before he posted that tweet, or anyone else that said to him, hey, post this tweet, I mean, there's got to be, I don't think it's got to be, but the chance that there's, people on the inside that are ready to buy when it bottoms out before they know that Trump's going to, and no one's going to prosecute them. I mean,
they're all sitting in, they're probably all in the Oval Office with their Blackberries, like with their finger on the button going trade. What was that, Mr. President?
Take me. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I am of the opinion that Trump's entire plan this time around is just grift. Right. It's just the big grift. Mm-hmm. Him, his children, his associates. It's let's just bleed as much money out of the U.S. economy as we can, as long as we can. I don't know what they do then. I don't know what part 2 is of that plan, but when they crash the U.S. economy.
Well, Musk will be on Mars and Trump will be in Florida.
No. Well, actually, I do, because I covered this on Futuristic last week. So there's this guy, I won't waste a lot of time on this, but there's this guy called Dryden Brown who runs a company called Praxis. Praxis is his way of trying to implement the network state idea. There's this guy who's part of the Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen billionaire circle called Srinivasan. He's a partner at Andreessen Horowitz. Wrote a book a couple of years ago called The Network State. And it's basically the idea of just imagine a Reddit community with 50,000 uber rich nerds who just decide to start a country together. They're going to start their own nation state with their own laws, their own taxation, their own whatevers. Then they go and buy a piece of land, declare themselves an independent nation state. This guy, Dryden Brown, he's raised $500 million in commitments from Peter Thiel and the like. He went to Greenland a year or two ago and tried to buy Greenland to establish Praxis as a nation state there. They told him to go away, but that kind of ties into the Trump efforts to take over Greenland, I think. It's also rare earth elements and all of that kind of stuff, buffer zone, blah-de-blah-de-blah. But yeah, they're trying to set up their own, basically, techno-utopian nation state. Fascinating stuff.
Is their subheading or their motto, "Where is John Galt"?
Yeah, well, that's what I said.
Yeah.
No, it's Atlas Shrugged.
Atlas Shrugged,
the other one.
The other one, okay.
Yeah, that's what I said on the show. This is Atlas Shrugged in practice, basically. In practice. We just go set up our own country in praxis. Yeah. Well, that's what praxis means in Greek, is putting theory into practice. Right. It's literally, who is John Galt? Yeah. I mean, crazy.
But it's also like the B-arc in Hitchhiker's Guide, which is one of my favourite concepts in literature. We used to
I don't remember that.
Put people on the B-arc when I used to work corporate. So, right, there's a world conference of politicians and engineers and physicists, etc., and they come up with this concept. They announced to the world that they've realised there's going to be an asteroid striking the Earth in the next 5 years, but they've just got time to build some rocket ships, 3 arcs to take people off the planet to survive the asteroid collision. A arc is going to have all of the world leaders and politicians in it. C arc is going to have all the engineers and construction people and people who build things in it. B arc is going to have the rest, all the creative types, the telephone sanitizers, the color coordinators, the movie producers in it. So 5 years pass, they got 3 arcs, they load the B arc, have a big fanfare, big parade, press the button, send it off into space, and then just go. Job done. and then at the very end of the cycle of books, what's his name? Ford Prefect lands on a planet. And after a lot of coincidences, it turns out it's inhabited by the B-arc survivors, and it turns out it's Earth.
I got to go back and read those. It's been decades and decades.
Yeah. So we can put the Praxis people on the B arc and say goodbye. Yeah.
Well, I think they want to build their own arc. And he's talking about it as being a dry run for Elon's Mars, or Mask, I think is he's going to change the name. He's going to put a K on the end of the name of the planet when he lands there. Just call it Elon Musk. Yeah, dry run to just go and set up a brand new city with people who choose to be members of they take out a subscription to be members of the city. And Trump's selling his $5 million gold visa, whatever it is. Anyway.
A couple of other comments. One of the things I'm happy about QAV and happy I haven't been investing in growth stocks is I went through and did a little quick comparison. I'm picking the eyes out of some of the stocks here, but some of the stocks, that are at the growth end of the market are down 30% plus this year. And stocks that I'm holding, like, as you said before, ANZ, maybe a sell, but it's down. It's not down that kind of amount. It's down 10, 15%. And so it's times like these. I mean, there's always a time in the cycle when I go, oh, geez, I should look at growth stocks and try and develop a framework to invest in them. That's usually the top of the market. I should learn from that. Next time you hear me say it, just remind me it's top of the market time. But yeah, so like Pro Medicus is down 30-odd% from its high. Macquarie's down 30%. ResMed's down 20%. Xero the same. Next DC's down 40%. Goodman Group down 35%. Life 360 down 30%. But, then you look at the stocks that kind of we focus on. ANZ down 10, QBE down 5. And it just reminds me of the old aphorism, up the escalator, down the elevator shaft, with those stocks that are really priced to perfection. As soon as instability comes into the market, they drop quickly.
Yeah, and I've been hearing you say that as long as we've been talking about investing, like when the market hits trouble, they drop like a stone every time.
Yep, they do.
Yeah. Same thing's happening with the Mag 7 over in the US, obviously.
Yeah, and Tesla in particular.
And BitTorrent. I mean, dropped a ton too. So, yeah.
Yeah, so that's...
Well...
the other thing I want to talk about, just quickly, last comment before we leave this, is that we've got Telstra I had a look at today as I was deciding what to do a pulled pork on. It's just off the buy list. I think it's a QAV score of 0.09, but it has been on the buy list earlier this year. It's one of the only stocks going up at the moment. And another one which has been on the buy list, I think last year, came off it, was Austal. ASB is going up as well, because there's two things that happen in this kind of market. One is there's a migration to what's called the defensive stocks, so the likes of supermarkets, kind of the boring stocks that sell everyday things to people that they need to keep buying. They tend to, start to see a bit of growth, or at least support in this market. Telstra is one of those too. People are probably going to keep their phones. They're not going to, they'll cut back on a lot of things, but they'll keep their phones going. Same with supermarkets, so that's good. Austal's a bit different this time. Austal's, one of its large businesses is building and selling ships to the US Navy. So defence stocks are having a bit of time in the sun at the moment, as all countries are kind of reevaluating, at Donald Trump's insistence, whether they're spending enough on defence. And as alliances are a bit more fluid these days, they're kind of reevaluating their own abilities to defend themselves. So, Austal's been doing well as well.
I hope they're all trying to figure out how to defend themselves from Donald Trump. That's who I want to be defending myself from right now. Speaking of which, I noticed the spokesperson for Beijing's embassy in the United States told the AFP, "We have stressed more than once that pressuring or threatening China is not the right way to engage with us. China will firmly safeguard its legitimate rights and interests," when he threatened to double the tariffs on China. They're like, I don't think so. I read that they've, in the last couple of days, China's passed a new piece of law, legislation, a bill, whatever they call them over there, to stop selling all of the rare earth elements to US companies. So the stuff that they control 70 to 80% of the market for, that goes in all of the chips and the EVs and the AI chips and all of that kind of stuff. They're just like, okay, you can't buy those anymore. We're shutting the door on that. So
and even if they didn't, like paying the 34% tariff probably meant they weren't going to buy much from China anymore and would look for other places anyway. Australia might benefit from that too, because we have some rare earth miners in Australia.
Yeah, but I don't think we cover the range of rare earth minerals that the Chinese own, a lot of which are critical for military equipment, as well as I said, EVs, chip, AIs, computer chips, whatever. So it's I explained it to Hunter this morning. I said it's a game of brinksmanship right now. It's who blinks first, who backs away first. Is it going to be Trump or China, basically, at the end of the day? Other countries will play around the edges, but it really comes down to Trump v. China, I think.
It does, doesn't it, really? And that's going to be the biggest impact on us, I think, is if either of those countries go into recession because of the trade war, that will affect Australia. Otherwise, it's really kind of the bright, shiny object that's being played out in Washington that we're all focused on. But I think that's the core of it is if China or America goes into recession, we will have some blowback in Australia.